we are going to appreciate a simple, short, and sweet poem, The Squirrel. I need not tell you how the squirrel looks like. A tiny, small, simple, cute creature that we find around us in our living habitats. Where do you find these squirrels? Yes, around us, under the trees, upon the branches of trees. And in fact, when we watch them, we just forget everything and we will be uh, very much impressed with its cute behavior. Once, the poet, he went along with his friends into an orchard, let us say into a garden. And there he happened to see a beautiful squirrel. It caught the attention of the poet. The poet says he wore a question mark for its tail. If you watch a squirrel, you might notice its tail that is exactly in the shape of a question mark. So here the poet says, seeing the shape of the question mark shape of the squirrel's tail, the poet describes as if it is wearing some question mark for its tail. And an overcoat of grey. What does it mean, an overcoat of grey? You might have already seen the back of a squirrel is usually in grey color with some black stripes over it. So when we look at it, we feel like it looks like it has worn some coat over it. So with its black stripes against the grey color background, the back of the squirrel gives us an impression that that little creature is wearing some coat of grey color. And then when it sits, how does it sit? When you are in the classroom, how do you sit? Upright, very disciplined. In the same way, a squirrel sitting and eating a nut, it sits quite upright and eats nuts. It appears like a very decent student, a very disciplined student. This is how we should sit. When you look at that squirrel, we feel like it is telling us, see, this is how you people should sit, like me, straight up. And then, in order to have a close look of the squirrel, when the poet and his friends, they moved towards or they moved closer to the squirrel, what does it, the squirrel, it quickly, very fast, it moves the other side of the tree. And when the poet and his friends, when they go other side, it would come this side. Like that, it would play. Do you think really here the squirrel is playing with the poet and his friends? No. That was a simple, shy creature. And any human presence, the presence of human beings usually make these tiny creatures alert and they move away from us. But the poet describes it here, the fast, quick movements of the squirrel. You must have watched how fast a squirrel moves. The fast movements of squirrel, uh, he describes as it is playing. It is teasing the friends and the poet. It is teasing the poet and his friends. Catch me if you can, like that. It was, he describes the squirrel as if it were playing with the poet and his friends. What do we understand from this? You may ask me, what is there? It's all about the poet's appreciation for nature and the beauties that offered by the nature. In our today's busy life, we do not find time to stop and look at the woods or nature around us. We don't have time even to see the simple plants, the beautiful flowers, or the honeybees, or the butterflies in our garden. So busy we have become these days. But the poet, being a nature lover, he enjoyed the sight of a simple squirrel. He enjoyed the shape of the squirrel, the movements of the squirrel. That's how he liked the company of the squirrel. This shows that the poet's keen observation of nature. He was sensitive enough to see and enjoy the simple delight that nature offered him in the form of a cute squirrel. So the poem indirectly has a message for us. What? One should find time to watch nature around, to watch and enjoy nature around. And yes, there is yet some another thing to be learned from this poem. What is that? In the poem, you would see expressions like he wore a question mark, he wore overcoat in grey, he teased and played. Here, the poet described the squirrel as if it wore an overcoat. Who wears overcoats or shirts or tops, whatever? We the human beings. Does a squirrel really wear an overcoat? No. But here the poet described an animal, a non-human thing, like doing something like human beings. The squirrel is not a human being. It's an animal. But here the poet described the squirrel in such a way that it describes the behavior of that squirrel in comparison with human activities. We people wear coat or shirt or whatever, but animals don't. But here the poet described the squirrel as if it was wearing an overcoat or a question mark. Some other time he said he liked to tease and play. Who teased here? The squirrel, whom the poet and his friends. Who played with the poet? The squirrel. Do you really think that squirrel intentionally teased the poet and his friends and played with them? No. It was simply moving away from them. But the poet described it as if the squirrel was playing with them, catch me if you can. Or as if the squirrel was teasing them. This is also some kind of playing and teasing. These are all human deeds, human activities. So taking a lifeless object or a non-human thing and describing it as doing something like humans, in poetry, this technique is known as personification. What is that? Personification. What is personified here? The squirrel is personified, like wearing, as if it was wearing an overcoat, or as if it was playing with the poet, or as if it was teasing the poet and his friends. So, this personification is one of figures of speech. What is personification? Taking a lifeless object or a non-human object and describing them as if they were doing something like human beings. That is called personification. Another example I would like to give you here. The wind was whispering something in my ears. What is happening actually here? Wind was blowing. But the poet describes the air as if it is talking something in a hushed voice. Does the air talk to us? No. Does it whisper? No. But still, here the air, which is a lifeless object, being described as doing something like human beings. This is what we call personification. That's all about the poem, The Squirrel. Hope you enjoyed the poem.